If you want to learn about Islam and Muslims, stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to today's show of Secrets of a Good Life. I'm your host Madhia and you're listening to me on Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. And I'm really excited about today's show because we're talking about a really important topic that's received a lot of attention. Before I talk about the topic, you may notice it's just myself here today. Dr. Ruqayya, we are missing you, and I'm definitely missing conversation with you. It's not going to be the same. Dr. Ruqayya is away on holiday, taking a well-earned break, and she'll be back with us next week. So today's topic is overthinking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what is overthinking, and then how it affects us, and then different ways on how we can overcome and be free of overthinking, because it's something that's actually affecting us and really debilitating many of us. We can't function because our mind is totally consumed by racing thoughts, lots of thoughts, fearful thoughts, and it's taking us away from normal day-to-day functioning. And so let's have a look at what are the 4 types of overthinking. This is not an exhaustive list, but just to give you an idea of the different types of overthinking. Sometimes people assume that overthinking is of just one type, but actually there's different types of overthinking. And so if you work with a therapist, it would require a slightly different approach. But the advice I'm going to share with you today, you can apply to any type of overthinking. So number 1, the first type of overthinking I want to talk about is when you're ruminating, and that involves rehashing the past. And this is often found in patients that are suffering from depression. So kind of things that you might be saying to yourself are, I shouldn't have spoken up in the meeting today. Everyone looked at me like I was an idiot. Or maybe I could have stuck it out at my old job. I would be happy if I just stayed there. Or maybe my parents always said I wouldn't amount to anything, and they were right. So these are some of the kind of words and sentences you might be saying to yourself if you're ruminating and rehashing the past. And these are some signs of depression, essentially. If you're having these thoughts in and of themselves, it doesn't mean that you are suffering from depression. But people that suffer from depression often have these ruminating thoughts about rehashing the past. And that's the first one. Let's move on to the second type of overthinking. And the second type is worrying that involves negative and often catastrophic predictions about the future. So it's essentially a worry about the future that may or may not happen. And this type of thinking is often witnessed in people that suffer from anxiety. Again, just because you're worrying and having a negative thought about a prediction of the future doesn't mean you're suffering from anxiety. But like I said, anyone that is suffering from anxiety, this is usually and often the root cause. So what kind of thoughts do you get? I'm going to embarrass myself tomorrow when I give that presentation. My hands will shake, my face will turn red, and everyone will see that I'm incompetent. Or maybe, I'll never get promoted. It doesn't matter what I do. It's just not going to happen. Or maybe my spouse is going to find someone better than I am. I'm going to end up divorced and alone. Or my children are going to hate me. I'm an awful mother, awful father. My children are going to hate me and leave me alone when they're older and I'm older. So this is the second type of overthinking. Again, it's worrying that involves negative and often catastrophic predictions about the future. So that's 2 types of overthinking. Let's move on to the third type of overthinking. And this third type of overthinking often stems from PTSD, and that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And what happens is the individual has experienced some form of trauma, and the overthinking comes as a form of distraction. It comes to distract you from the real issue. Because what happens is the trauma is stuck in the body and it's so overwhelming, and the individual is so desperate to deal with this trauma and make it go away, but don't know how to, and don't know where to begin, and don't have the support or direction. Then the mind intervenes to help. And how does it help? It helps by consuming your mind, consuming your thoughts with something else, anything else, and lots of else. So this is a third type of overthinking. It's when you're trying to distract yourself from a trauma because you just can't and don't know how to deal with it. And the final type of overthinking that I want to talk about today is when you need to and have been playing the role of the perfect one. And we can talk about the type of roles we'll play in future sessions, I think it'll be very useful. But today, I just want you to be aware that when we are hurt, when we don't have connection with people, and we don't feel significant, and we don't feel important, which is one of our core needs in life as a human being, and every human being has this need, is for connection, to feel worthy, to feel significant. And when that is severed in any way, and it could be something that seems minor to someone else, but for this individual, it actually results in severing of a connection, or it affects their self-worth, then they start playing a role. And when I say start playing a role, is they start acting in a certain way to try and get that connection back and get that feeling of self-worth. And in playing that role, one of the roles that individuals play is they try to be the perfect one. And you might resonate with this or know someone that does this. So this is the one that listens to instructions. So as a young child, whatever the parents said, they fulfilled the expectations. Even communal expectations, society expectations. They're the ones that behave well. You take them out, inverted commas, behave well, as in the adult expectations of behaving well. And these are children that parents often like to take out with them because they're publicly presentable. At school, they'll be doing well. The teachers are pleased with them, proud of them. They're getting the best grades. At work, they're always trying to please their boss, please their team members. Everyone needs to be happy with them. Everyone needs to be seeing that they are doing well. And in a relationship, whether it's, as a parent or, the spouse relationship, they're going to be trying to please the spouse and try and be the perfect wife or husband and prevent disappointment. And again, with the children. And this is really difficult because we're not perfect. We're far from it. And so this individual feels like they're not good enough. And so they're constantly thinking about the tasks that need to be done to feel like they're good enough, so that people are impressed with them. And they're actually disabled by this fear of rejection, and they often don't succeed. And usually what happens, just as a side point, is the mind will start looking for excuses. And so don't be surprised if the perfect one, the perfect child, begins to develop disabling ailments. Because like I said, we're not perfect, and we can't attain perfection, and we never will. And so to try and give reason to ourselves and to others as to why we're not attaining that perfect level, we often start developing physical or mental ailments. So it could be like anxiety, or it could be migraines. Migraines are very, very common for the ones that are trying to be or expected to be the perfect ones. Tummy aches, again, stemming from the anxiety. But they can also have disabling effects depending on what's expected of them. They could physically start becoming weak and exhaustion. And, have more serious issues, health issues. Again, these issues come to give reason, to give themselves an excuse. I'm using the word excuse in inverted commas because it's the mind thinks of it as an excuse, but it's far from an excuse. But it's an excuse, a reason of why they're not the perfect one. So that was the final type of overthinking that I want to look at today. And the thing about overthinkers is that it's not just the words that they use to contemplate their lives. They actually conjure up images too. And for example, they might actually envision a car going off the road that they're driving, or replaying a distressing event in their minds like a movie. I had a client the other day that I spoke with, and one event that she keeps replaying, and she's in her mid-30s now. And it was, she was a university student, and she was catching a train either to or from university. I don't remember that. And unfortunately, it's a tragic incident that someone jumped out in front of their train. And since then, and even in that moment, she started thinking, oh, what if I do that? What if I'm that person that jumps in front of a train? Could I become that person? Again, these are thoughts that are stemming from the trauma. And because the trauma has not been dealt with, the thoughts are just ruminating. And, she has a lot of anxiety. And, she's a parent, a spouse, and it becomes overbearing, trying to deal with the day-to-day functions. And so one of the ways it's affecting her is just being able to drive even. She's struggling to get in the car and drive, and just normal getting the kids to school, getting herself to work, etc. She says she pushes herself, but she gets a lot of physical symptoms when she needs to and then actually drives. So you can see how impactful overthinking is on our lives. It really can have a very disabling impact on us. And so overthinking, you can't compare it to heart disease or lung disease or, cancer, etc. But ask the person who's experiencing the overthinking and how much it's disabling them. They will struggle to differentiate between overthinking, that is, extreme levels of overthinking that leads people into anxiety and deep anxiety and depression, and someone who suffers from heart disease or any other disease. It's disabling for them, and they have no freedom to be themselves, to do the things that they want to do. They feel totally shackled by this overthinking. And so I really wanted to talk about overthinking today for that reason. Not just for those of you who experience very serious levels of overthinking that disable you to a point where you have deep anxiety and depression, but even those of you who are noticing yourself heading in that direction where you're worrying more than what you used to, you're ruminating more than what you used to, or you begin to feel like you're a disappointment, or maybe you've experienced a recent trauma and you really don't know how to manage it and are distracting yourself. I would certainly advise you to find someone, a coach, a mentor, a therapist who's going to help you get through this, because you really deserve to have your freedom to be yourself. In CBT, or what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, the overthinking that is considered negative is referred to as automatic negative thoughts. And there's a mnemonic, ANTS. And these are basically automatic, so they knee-jerk negative thoughts. So often you don't feel like you've got control. And depending on how long you've been experiencing it and how deeply you're affected by them, you really will feel like you don't have much control over them and you don't know how to overcome it. So today I really want to give you some powerful tools that, number one, will help you in that moment and how to deal with that overthinking, but also how to have a lifestyle or a routine that's going to prevent you from overthinking in the future and be free of it, because that's what we want. We want to be free of this so we can be true to ourselves and not be held back. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to be talking to you about the solutions. But before I talk about the solutions, I want to talk a little bit more about how overthinking and what we know as automatic negative thoughts and ANTS affect our body, mind, and spirituality. So let's talk about the body first. Actually, before I do that, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Any questions that you have. If you're experiencing overthinking, then, get on the phone, call me on 01733 602 133, or drop me a text on 07411 191062. Or you can drop in a comment on the live stream of Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Tell me what it's like for you. Tell me what you're experiencing, and I can hopefully give you some cues on how to manage that. Or if you know something that you've used, a trick that you've used that you think you believe has worked for you and really helped you overcome the overthinking and be free of it, then please share it. We're all here to learn and we're all growing. And so I'd love to hear from you. So yes, effects on the body of overthinking. So the body will generally feel what we call an overwhelm. What is an overwhelm? It's when you emotionally and physically are feeling some form of exhaustion. But with the exhaustion, you might also feel, or instead of feel, some irritability, anger. You might notice yourself putting other people down because hurt people hurt others. So when you are hurt yourself, you're more likely to hurt others. So that's a cue, actually. If you are noticing that you are saying negative things to other people, then you might want to think about how you're talking to yourself and what might be going on in your mind. You might even resort to alcohol, drugs, or develop a bad relationship with food. So addictions are quite common with people who overthink. Again, the addiction comes as a way to try and heal the overthinking or experience something other than the overthinking, because you're so desperate for freedom from what's going on in your head that sometimes you're just willing to try anything. It affects your sleep, not only by the number of hours of sleep, you tend to sleep a lot less, but also the quality of sleep tends to be very, very bad. So, some of us can sleep 4 to 6 hours, but have good quality sleep and be energetic and have the vitality for the rest of the day. But then someone else, you might say, oh, well, I'm sleeping 10 hours, 12 hours a day, but I'm still feeling exhausted and tired. You might want to look at the quality of your sleep. So how much of it is it in REM? How much of it is light? How much of it is deep sleep? And how much are you waking up? I mean, I'm not promoting this, but if you have a phone that you're using and you keep it with you overnight or next to you overnight, then you might want to use one of those apps that help you understand what your sleep quality is like and sleep routine is like, just to give you an idea. I've heard that they're quite good and fairly accurate. So these are the effects that it has on your body. And now the mind. There's lots of different effects, by the way. This is not an exhaustive idea of what happens to the body and what happens to the mind. There's lots of different effects. This is just something, I'm just limiting it just to a few for the sake of discussion. Next, mind. You're more likely to procrastinate. You're more likely to have incomplete tasks. You're more likely to have lists, well, you might not even make lists, but a long to-do tasks that you're just not getting around to doing. And your mind is totally consumed by the thoughts of doing those tasks, opposed to actually actively doing those tasks. Secondly, it can affect your relationships. You're more likely to second guess what others are saying, see meanings that aren't really meant, see negative meanings when they're not actually meant, expect negative from others because you think so bad of yourself. Often when you're overthinking, you think quite negatively of yourself and you have like a bad judgment and don't really hold yourself in a very high position. And so you might actually project on other people as well. So you might not hold them in a very respectable position or expect them to treat you like that. So you often assume that others think of you like you think of yourself. So if you think you're a failure, you'll perceive others to think of you as a failure. So they might say something and you'll automatically assume that they're insinuating or saying that you're a failure. So for example, let's say your friends, you need to pick up some grocery for your friend, and your friend says to you, is that okay for you? And you might respond feeling offended. Like, what does she mean by, is that okay for you? Does she think I'm not capable? Does she think I can't do something as simple as pick up groceries? And your friend, 99% of the time won't have that meaning behind her words at all. She's probably just checking that you don't have other tasks. She's not burdening you. because you'll have other commitments, etc., and that you're not going out of your way to do this, but you will take it that way, and we don't want that to happen. And it often happens just because you're feeling like a failure. You think others perceive you that way as well. So you second guess what they mean, and you second guess what they're going to say. And don't be surprised if it affects your ability to do that task, to pick up the grocery for her, because you're now carrying such heavy feelings of shame for not being able to do something. And shame is such a heavy feeling on the body. It is quite disabling. It's going to affect your ability to do the task. So that's the body and the mind. The other thing about relationships actually is that you often won't ask for support or take support in fear of how you may be perceived. Because you have this expectation of yourself to be perfect, you believe that taking help is a sign of weakness, and asking for help is a sign of weakness. And so you'll avoid doing that. Even if you need it, even if it's going to make your life easier, you still won't accept or ask for that help. Again, it's because for you, taking help is almost affirming that you're a failure and unable to do tasks by yourself, which is completely false. But it's just because of where you are in your mind, you're perceiving it that way. And in fact, it takes great strength of character and great level of confidence to say, hands up, I want to get some help. And you'll notice that majority, the world leading businessmen and women, mentors, therapists, coaches, you name it, they have their own mentors. They have their own group of people that are helping them to get to where they are. They're smart. They know the easiest thing to do is get support by specialists to get to the top. And so that's what they do. And we should all be doing that. And it should in fact be celebrated. I've got a mentor. I've got a coach. I've got a coach to help me get this job. I've got a mentor to help me with my new marriage. I've got a mentor to help me with my parenting. It's new. A lot of times people think that this is something negative, but actually it's such a smart thing to do, to refer to a specialist to try and get kind of like a fast track, most effective way to get to where you want to get. So if you don't have a mentor in your life, seek one. Coach, maybe, therapist, because you'll be able to go to higher places and experience like an upgraded life. And the final thing I want to talk about in terms of effects that overthinking has on us is it affects us spiritually. You'll notice yourself, and it's almost impossible to be present when you are overthinking because you're so in your head and so consumed by what's going on in your head. It's highly unlikely that you're going to be present where you are. You might miss conversations or miss parts of the conversation. You might be out experiencing something amazing, but miss the experience, although you're physically there. You might be spending time with friends, but not be connected with them because you're not actually there in your presence. You're in your head. So what happens is you disconnect from yourself, even your own body, because you are in your mind. You're not even in your body. You disconnect from your surroundings. You disconnect from others around you. So what happens? This leads you to missing out on a lot of joy, because even when you were there, you weren't actually there. And that's really sad, because there's so much to take, so much joy and goodness to take from the people around us, the environment, and even ourselves. Just be present with ourselves, because to be present with God, Allah, we need to first be present with ourselves. And we can only be present with ourselves if we get out of our head and into our bodies. I'm going to show you after the break. We're going to come up to a break in a minute. And I'm going to show you after the break what's different ways in which you can connect with yourself, get out of your head and get into the present. I'm going to use mindset approach, but also, as I've mentioned before, mindset approach, it's great when you can use it, but it's not enough. And so I've also got somatic experiences that I'm going to share with you that are really going to upgrade and increase the quality of your life, essentially, because it's going to upgrade the quality of your experiences, of where you are, who you are with, what communication you are having. And once you experience being present, it's so much easier to continue like that and to make that habit and a routine. And you'll notice yourself one day that you're not even in your head. So stay tuned, come back after the break, where I'm going to share with you many tricks and tips. Speak to you soon.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Peterborough Eats is your new local food ordering platform. Order through Peterborough Eats and not only save money with exclusive deals and discounts, also save your takeaway money too, with our commission being up to 50% cheaper than other well-known platforms. Each order through Peterborough Eats also helps us reinvest back into our community. Find our app on Google and Apple stores or visit peterborough-eats.co.uk. Why not order today?
Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Our shish kebabs are grilled on a charcoal barbecue for that authentic taste. Lamb shanks, fresh shawarma, chili kebab, lamb shish, grilled chicken, freshly made baklava and so much more. Eat in or order through Peterborough Eats or Peterborough Grab. Asia Restaurant, 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Call us on 01733 562 530. Great prices, great quality. Why not come and find out for yourself? Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
Are you looking for a career where you can make a difference? At Cross Keys Homes, we work with our local communities to create opportunities that change lives. We're looking for enthusiastic, talented people to join our team, from apprenticeships to senior management positions. Cross Keys Homes can support your development while you enjoy great employee benefits. There are so many opportunities for you to shine. Apply to join the Cross Keys Homes team at crosskeyshomes.co.uk.
HS Lawyers make it so simple. Contact Majid Sarwar or Asad Arif today for any matters relating to immigration, family, business or property. Google HS Lawyers to see why we're the highest reviewed firm in Peterborough, with over 500 testimonies on our honesty, speed and excellent communication, making your legal matter simple, easy and stress-free. Contact us today on 01733 703 978. That's 01733 703 978, or email us at peterborough@hs-lawyers.co.uk. HS Lawyers, built on values of integrity and respect, with offices in Peterborough and throughout the West Midlands.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Secrets of the Mind show. I'm your host Madhia Jalal. You're listening to me on Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. Just before the break, I was talking about overthinking and what does overthinking look like, how does it affect our body. And now what I want to do is share with you tricks and tips on how you can overcome overthinking. I'm going to start off by sharing with you some mindset tricks that you can use in that moment. But I also understand that we all experience overthinking in different ways. Some of us are actually totally consumed by it, so are not in the position or have the power or the agency to be able to implement the mindset tools. But just listen anyway. Make a note of it. Let the seed be planted and make your way to this. It's a journey, and we are all on this journey, and there's no deadline, there's no cutoff. We're going to experience this differently. Trust yourself. There's something I say to my clients all the time. Trust yourself. You're going to get there. Just keep making note and absorbing whatever you can and implement as much as you can. Be true to yourself. Keep on working on yourself. Don't make any excuses, and you're going to get there. Don't think too much about, I've been trying this method or this tip and trick for so long and it's still not working. I tried it yesterday and I tried it again today and it's not working. Look, it's a habit. It's going to take time for it to become a part of you. Because let me share something with you about how the mind and body work, what the relationship is. When we send a message, because we're always sending messages to our body, through our nervous system, neurotransmitters, etc. And we send this through our words, our thoughts, etc. We're always communicating. When we are sending the same message, imagine I'm sending the same message, I'm going to fail in my exams, I'm going to do so bad this year. I don't know how I'm going to pass my A-levels or GCSEs, or I'm going to fail at this interview. No one ever likes me, and I never impress anyone. Imagine you keep on saying this to yourself. Now, the cells are very intelligent and they're always regenerating. Remember this, the cells are always regenerating and renewing. When you send a message and it's a message that the cells are familiar with, the cells very easily open up receptors. So when the message comes the first time, the cells are likely to reject it because it's not something they're familiar with. It's not something that they are used to accepting and receiving, so often they'll just reject it. And this might happen the first few times. But when the cell notices that this message is coming back again and again, the cells will open up a receptor to receive the message. That's what the receptor is, it receives the message. And now, when that message is sent again and again on an ongoing basis, the number of receptors that receive the message actually increase by a compounded effect. It's a multiplier effect, which means it's not one message, one receptor, two messages, two receptors, three messages, three receptors. No. It might be one message, one receptor, but the second time your body and your cell is receiving that message, it could be like 3-4 receptors. It's a compounding effect. So let's say it might be 1, 3, 9, and so on and so forth. So when you are changing something, so when you are sending your body new messages, you need to give it time because it's not used to the message. The receptors are not there. But carry on sending those messages because the receptors will receive the message. So keep going and trust yourself. You're going to get there. And with that in mind, I'm going to share with you, first of all, the mindset approach to dealing with overthinking. So, when the overthinking is happening, the first thing you need to do is awareness. Awareness is almost kind of like the prerequisite to healing, the prerequisite to overcoming anything. Is first to be aware of it. And we've known this, we've heard this as growing up, that you can't change anything that you're not aware of. To solve a problem, you first need to acknowledge the problem. By acknowledge, we mean to be aware of it. So awareness is the first step to putting an end to overthinking. You need to start paying attention to the way you think. Notice yourself overthinking. Acknowledge that your thoughts aren't productive. So there you go. In that moment, when the overthinking is just about to happen, or let's say the overthinking has been happening and you have no memory of when it started, that's fine. But in the moment that you notice the overthinking, just become aware that you are overthinking. That's the first thing. And when you become aware of the overthinking, then notice the way in which you are overthinking. Are you ruminating? Are you worrying? Are you trying to avoid something that's happened? Or are you putting yourself down because you're not good enough? And then acknowledge that these thoughts are not productive. Even something that really helps, and Dr. Rukia shared this last week. In that moment when you are overthinking, if you just stand up and give your body a shake that feels a little rigorous and notice the thoughts leaving you, it actually brings you back to a bit of calm and a bit of composure, and will at the least reduce the impact of the overthinking. And once you reduce the impact of the overthinking, you can then do the mindset work. Just to note that over time, make a note of any specific time of day or year, any specific person or people, any, specific place where you tend to overthink more. Make a note of it, because that's going to suggest that that environment or person at that time of year, something isn't right about it and something needs to be altered. So that's step one, awareness, and just acknowledging that those thoughts are not productive. Step two, challenge your thoughts. It's so easy to get carried away with negative thoughts. But before you conclude anything, before you conclude, I'm not going to get the job, I'm going to fail the exams, I'm not going to, for example, when I was climbing Mount Snowdon, of course, like when I was at the bottom, when I was at the summit, when I was at the bottom of Mount Snowdon, it was pouring down, it was windy, and it was quite a miserable day, dark day. And as we started walking up, some of you will know this, it's a really steep start. I went for the easiest walk, apparently. It's a really steep start. And in my mind, a thought came, am I going to make it to the top? Because that start was tough. But I knew I had to stop that thought in that moment, because if I ruminated with that thought, was I going to carry on for very long? No. So before I started deciding that I'm not going to make it to the top, and even my kids were, trying to negotiate and convince me that we need to give up, I had to coach myself and them into believing that we're going to make it to the top and come back down. There's no other option. So I stopped myself from concluding that I can't do this. So when you're in your situation, before you conclude that calling in sick is going to get you fired, or forgetting a deadline means that you're going to become homeless, or not attending one lesson at college means that you're going to fail the exam, or not doing well in one test means you're going to fail the exam, just acknowledge that these thoughts may actually be very exaggerated and negative. Just challenge it and say, that's very negative and very exaggerated. Learn to recognize and replace thinking errors before they work you into a complete frenzy. So just the way I did in that example, when I needed to climb Mount Snowdon, and I had to tell myself that I need to stop this negative thinking, otherwise I'm not going to make it. And I had to make it. for two reasons. Number one, I was doing it for charity. And number two, I don't like to give up. And so I didn't want this to be the first place. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a time and place. I have to assess safety. And, you know, it was still safe. Although my children tried to convince me that it's not safe and it's going to affect their life. But I had to see through all of that and really sift through their words and understand what they actually meant. And what they actually meant is they just want to have an ice cream and go back down. But they made it, and we were all safe, and we came back safely. So before you get yourself into frenzy, notice that negative overthinking is most of the time exaggerated. Just notice that it's exaggerated and tell your thoughts that this is exaggerated. This is too much. Calling in sick is not going to get you fired. It's like, it's in very unlikely cases that that's going to happen. So that was number 2, challenge your thoughts. Number 3, keep your focus on the problem solving. So you could spend the time worrying about, oh, I've missed this test, or I've missed this deadline, or I called in sick, it's going to affect my work, it's going to affect my relationship with my colleagues, I'm not going to pass my exam at the end of the year, I'm not going to get a good predicted grade, or I was late to pick up my child and now my child's going to think that I don't love them. You know, there's lots of examples that I could use and that you experience. But notice that these are exaggerated. And once you've noticed that they're exaggerated, notice that you're focusing on the problem. And what you need to focus on is the solution. And how do you do that? Ask yourself what steps you can take to learn from your mistake and avoid a future problem. Instead of asking why had something happened, ask yourself what can you do about it to try and help your situation, even relieve it a little bit. If you can't make it go away completely, even to relieve it. So that's the third one. Focus on active problem solving. Do something about it practically. And the fourth mindset approach is schedule time for reflection. So if you whenever a thought's coming into your mind, or as soon as you notice that you're overthinking, if you have scheduled a time in the day for thinking, because thinking is important, we need to reflect upon our status quo and what needs to be changed, etc. It's really important that we don't let it stew for long periods of time. So maybe incorporate 20 minutes of thinking time in your daily schedule. So during this time, let yourself worry, ruminate, and mull over whatever you want, but it's 20 minutes. And once the time is up, move on to something more productive. So in that moment, let's say you've scheduled yourself to do your overthinking. I was going to say 8 p.m., but try and avoid it being later in the day. Make it earlier in the day, maybe like 10 a.m. Because you have the day to be productive. And you don't want those thoughts to be the last sort of things you've done in the evening. Make it early in the morning. If you get any thoughts later on in the day, just tell yourself, don't worry, you've got tomorrow, you can do all the thinking then. Stop now, do what you're doing, be present where you are, and do the thinking tomorrow. You've got 20 minutes. It's almost kind of like a code that you've given to your brain that the overthinking has to switch off throughout the day except those 20 minutes that you've allocated. And again, it's going to become a habit once you keep pushing it. So that's what you must do. So these are the mindset rules. However, like I said, these can be, are not going to work for everyone. The reason being is some people are actually very consumed and very overwhelmed that the overthinking is not just a mental thing. It's not just in their head. It's actually, they can experience it in their body. And so the experience in the body can sometimes feel so overwhelming that they need to do something different to get themselves into in a place where they can get a bit more agency. Usually, if you're in an overthinking where you're totally consumed by it, mentally and physically, you've given agency away to those thoughts. So we need to get some of that agency back. And how are we going to get that agency back? What I mean by getting agency back, actually, it's literally just getting your power back, getting your control back. like knowing that you are in control of your life, that you can do things to help it head in certain directions. So the first thing, we've mentioned this before, and I don't think we're going to ever stop mentioning this because it's so crucial to our day-to-day routine. And yes, these are daily routines that you really need to incorporate. The first one is grounding. And you guys probably know what grounding is by now, because both myself and Dr. Kay have been going on about it for so long. Use your senses to experience where you are. So, maybe name 2 things you can touch. How do they feel? What's their texture? What is their temperature? Just by doing that in that moment, when the overthinking is happening, you're moving yourself away from the head and into the body. But other than that, the other form of grounding that you need to do is actually stand on grass, soil, gravel, wet. Have I said all of them? Sand, grass, soil, gravel. Yeah, I think I've said all of them. Stand on them for up to 30 minutes a day. Preferably when first thing in the morning to get the morning light also. The earth has electromagnetic field, and what happens when we are in an overthinking state is that we have too many positive ions. By positive ions, I don't mean that they're good. I mean that the charge is positive. And so we are in an imbalance, we are in dis-ease, and to bring ourselves back into balance and neutrality, because we are healthy when our atoms are neutral. There's no positive or negative charge. When we're unhealthy, it's because we are, positively charged. Earth has a negative charge. So spend time in it, touch it, walk, in nature. Trees are amazing. Green has a lot of negative ions. So it's such a blessing, that earth in itself is healing for us. So do that every day. Spend up to 30 minutes spending time in or on or with something in nature. But in that situation, when you're overthinking, just to bring yourself back into your body, touch something. Ask yourself, how does it feel? Does it have a smell? What is the temperature of it? What is the texture of it? And focus on that. You'll be surprised at how the focus moves from the head to the body. Number 2, brain dump. What is a brain dump? Last thing at night, write down everything that's on your mind. So journal, essentially. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone. It doesn't even need to make sense to you. But literally, just start writing. And you might say to me, oh, but I don't know what to write. That's not the point. You don't need to know anything. Just hold the pen to the paper and just start moving. The words will come out themselves. And that's what we call a brain dump. And why we call it a brain dump is because all the overwhelm of thoughts that are in your body and in your mind need to come out. We're going to dump them onto that piece of paper. The other thing that you can do is separate yourself from the thoughts. So you can place your thought into clouds, maybe, and then bring them into your vision, like in front of you, and then watch them disappear into a distance. Another one that really works with my clients is you can imagine that you've got tabs in your mind, and each tab is a thought. And then what you just do is you go and close those tabs. Just switch it off. Be creative with this. I'd love to hear what works for you. What have you guys been trying that's really worked for you that you want to share with us? There's still time to drop in a message, a text maybe on 07411 191062, or maybe you want to call in and have a chat on 01733 602 133. You can even comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Share your ideas. Let's see what works for you. Number 3 is, I'm just going to share 2 more ways with you that are somatic, which you need to incorporate into your routine to prevent this happening, to prevent the overthinking from happening. So There's been lots of studies, and they show that a 90-minute walk in nature-filled environment can actually decrease one's inclination towards rumination. And that's because, again, you've got the negative ions, but also it's because of the lack of distractions. It forces you to focus on the here and now and in the present. It forces you to connect with where you are because of the lack of distractions, noise, people, technology. You're away from it all. And so that works brilliantly. So I've shared 3 with you. I'm going to share one more. This is slightly longer. So I've shared with you grounding, brain dump, and walking in nature. These are very simple and very easy, and they're cost effective. They cost you nothing, but they pay off really hugely, because freedom from overthinking will help you live a more productive and a life filled with vitality. The last one I want to talk to you about is writing down your tasks. This is a bit more practical. Is the tasks that you have in your mind, just write them down, but don't write them down in any old way. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques that you need to incorporate when you're writing down tasks. The first one is the Pareto principle. It states that 80% of results come from 20% of causes. And this, occurs in all aspects of our life. It's personal, business, and our to-do lists. So how is that relevant? You need to identify which of your tasks require the least amount of effort but yield the most results. So think about what you need to do that requires the least amount of effort but you get the most out of it. It might help if you use a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no effort and 10 being totally consuming effort. And then you could do the same for how much result it's going to yield. And you can do the same for how important it is, the priority. Then start with a list of items that require minimal effort, but to yield the most positive results. This is working smartly, working productively. And many of you must have heard, work smarter, not harder. And I'm a great believer in this. And even at school, I used to say to my kids, my students, and they used to say, "Oh, miss, I don't want to work hard." And I'm like, I don't want you to work hard either. I just want you to work smart. I'm not going to give you reels of work to do, but I'm going to give you the right work to do. Just get it done. It's going to instill the skill in you to get to where you need to. And I could really tell, well, at first they were shocked. Like Miss just said, she doesn't want us to work hard, as if that's news. Teachers don't say that. But actually, I'm surprised teachers don't say that, because it's such a smart way of working. Work smarter and not harder, as the name suggests. That was the first point on writing tasks down. It's a Pareto principle. The second is using a priority matrix, which has been put together by someone called Stephen Covey. You should follow him. He's pretty good in lots of tasks and lots of tips and tricks. What you do is make a box, and you have like a two-way table. On the left down, you have important, not important. And on the right across, you have urgent, non-urgent. Just identify 2 or 3 most important tasks on your list and focus on getting those done first. Everything else on the list is secondary. Just concentrate on the ones that are important and urgent. Just 2 or 3. It'll be nice just to get them done. Don't stress if there's no time. They serve more as reminders of unimportant things you'll have to get done later. And then, along with this, also make a list of the done, a done list. It really helps with stress management, because it allows you to understand how much you can actually get done in a day. It can really help you see physically, visually, of what you're able to achieve in just a day. And when you notice what you can achieve in just a day, you'll notice that if you do this daily, what you can achieve over time. And so this is it, overthinking, what I wanted to share with you today. I really hope that's been of benefit to you. Remember, there's different types of overthinking. So you will need something different Get yourself a mentor, a coach, or a therapist to help you get the best out of your experience of life. And I've shared with you different solutions. Just drop us a message on Salam Radio, or you can find me on my Instagram handle of Soul Root Therapy. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm really keen to support you and help you in overcoming overthinking, because I know how much it holds you back and how much it disables you. Remember to ground yourself. Remember to go for a walk in nature. You could ground yourself whilst you're going for a walk in nature. Just take out a bit of time. Remember to brain dump. Honestly, just try it. Then tell me what you think. Don't judge it until you've tried it. And then remember to write down tasks and make sure you only do the ones that are important and urgent. It was great speaking with you today. Thank you for listening. I look forward to coming back next week with Dr. Ruqayya with another topic and tips and tricks to help you.